Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the February 10th, 2020 meeting of the Michigan City Port Authority Board of Directors. First order of business is approval or correction of last meeting's minutes of January 27th. Do we have any corrections or a motion to approve?
I move for approval.
We have a motion to approve.
I'll second.
And a second. Any comments? Hearing none, all of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Moving on. Mr. Frame, Harbormaster Report.
All right. Larson Danielson is making good progress on the 200 dock. They're in the last 100 feet coming towards the fuel dock here. And they expect to be finished approximately the end of this week, though it could be the first day or two next week with the 200 dock project. So that's well ahead of schedule. I think our contract gives them till the middle of April. But since the weather's been so good, they haven't run into any technical issues and the weather's worked out good, so they're making good progress. On the 800 dock project, that's the electrical upgrade to replace the power outlet boxes with the ESD protected boxes. MB Electric was down last week and removed all the old boxes. They had a sample of the new box down here to get sizing and everything and made up a jig so they can drill the holes. And they were expecting the boxes in today. And assuming that happened, they expect to be out here tomorrow to start installing those. So hopefully they came in today and they'll be out tomorrow.
What's the total number on the conversions?
Oh, it's 50 some of the little boxes, and then there's 4 bigger panels on the outer part.
All right, thank you.
And then Colin was here from Edgewater Resources, and Mark from MB Electric was here Friday, and we did some research on the 4, 5, and 600 dock for a couple different things. We pulled a couple boards from the dock and looked at the structure underneath to see how it compared to the 2 and 300 dock. So in the future, if we decide to redeck those, we know what we'll be getting into. And then the secondary project was looking at how the electric is laid out under there. And we investigated the big breaker panel over there. And that's to make some progress on the project to look at upgrading the electric on that dock. Well, those 3 docks, because as you remember, those 3 are 8 inches lower than everything else. And so rather than just changing out the panels, we're also looking at changing the wiring to get all the connections above what they refer to as the datum plane, which is an elevation where they expect water to be, basically.
Just get them up in the pedestals.
Yeah, it would put all the connections well above where we expect the water to get, so we won't run into a problem where the dock power goes out from shorting out. But it would also then put the ESD protection in the boxes at each slip and upgrades with that. Also, the soil test came in from down at Sprague's, and so Edgewater is reviewing that and expects to have some recommendations next week related to projects at Sprague Point. So that's all I have for now, unless anybody has any questions.
Maybe just a question. Larson Danielson, apparently their estimate or guesstimate on decking was pretty good, or is there a lot left over?
I think they'll be pretty close. He hasn't really said how much extra they're going to have, but I don't think it'll be very much. They were looking at, they've had some bad boards periodically that are damaged on one end or another, or they don't feel they're in good enough shape to use. And it didn't sound like that was going to be a problem. And then we ended up using some of those as a trim piece along the concrete picnic area out here.
Sure.
That was kind of an awkward spot there, and between Larson Danielson and Edgewater and us, we came up with a strip along there, and they're going to use some of those damaged pieces for that. So I don't think we'll end up with really much in the way of extra.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
Sam?
Will you give us an update on your winter projects?
Yep. The big barge is all painted and just waiting to be put back together. The little barge is going in the shop probably towards the end of this week. We're just finishing up the dock boxes. We've got some sitting out here ready to go back on the dock. Some of them have already been put back out on the dock, but right now Larson Danielson has the walkway torn up where we need to get through. So as they move forward, we'll get around them and put the rest of the dock boxes out.
200 dock.
Yeah, for the 200 dock. And then we'll start working on the little barge and go from there.
Okay, thank you.
I was down looking at the racks, the old racks that you painted last fall. Tell you those, Sam has brought that up before. I tell you, those look really nice. You got those trailers out there. It's a lot of extra income coming into us, but they're painted really nice.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anything else for the harbor master? Ms. Palicki?
Last Thursday, Leslie and I went to a meeting at City Hall for the New World for the accounting system. It was all day on Thursday, morning class and afternoon. Next week, the second half of our invoices will be going out. And at the next meeting, we will have our customer reports as usual. We'll start doing them. And that's all that I have.
Anything from Mrs. Palicki? I asked you earlier when I came in how slip holder referral calls or high water mark calls. I said, and you said that no more than you're usually been getting about the questions on the high water. Okay.
But we do get them every day.
Okay, we do get them. All right. People are concerned. And as the harbor master reported on the meeting he had last Friday with marine engineers, we're working through the high water problem as best as we know how. So.
I could just add one more thing on the high water. Here for February, we're currently 6 inches above the previous record high for February that was set in 1986, which that puts us within 1/10 of a foot of the level we had last June. So we're basically at last June's water level right now before we get any spring additions. So the Corps of Engineers is predicting the next 6 months it to remain 4 to 6 inches above record highs. So
Now, you left me hanging on that. We know we're high now.
Right.
We know we're in the spring.
yeah,
Is the prediction that there'll be additional water from where we are now
yeah.
by about how much, Tim?
In June, it looks like they expect us to be about 6 inches higher than we were last June.
And what's that going to do to our lowest docks?
Well, that'll put the walkway probably within a foot of the water. Yeah,
And the power?
that would be bad.
Well, what I'm getting at is, worst case scenario, as we understand the water situation now, worst case scenario, are we going to have to shut down any docks?
I expect so at some point this summer.
And that would be
4, 5, and 6. When we looked at it Friday, the bottom of the connection boxes was in the water.
Okay.
Was just touching the water where it is right now. So if it goes up another 4 or 6 inches, those boxes will be halfway submerged.
Okay.
And storm surges will be worse.
Yeah.
Do we have a temporary fix?
No. No, because the problem is at that point, you're getting it from both sides. It's coming up through the storm drains and flooding out the parking lot, and it, can come over the sidewalk and flood the bathroom, and that whole area is real low. And how do you raise the land? there. You know,
I think we've had those boxes underwater already last year. Didn't
oh
we?
yeah, a couple times.
And it didn't
So
really
far-
cause us any problems.
So far, not right, and I don't know why.
Hmm.
But we had MB check it a couple times during last summer after high water events where we thought there'd be a problem, and he couldn't find a problem. So maybe they're set up a little different than the others. I don't know. But if they're in the water long enough,
Yeah.
you know, it'll infiltrate that. And
Well, the problem is there's no way for them to drain out because they're laying this way instead of this way.
right, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you know, we're the board. We've got some suggestions and ideas. I mean, Tim and Edgewater and a few of us have tried to look into this and do some foresight and think, you know, what should we be doing other than what we're doing? And this is what we're coming up with, is taking it a step at a time and have some options in the background, but there's none of the options are very good right now. We've talked about, you know, what happens if we do lose the docks for a little while. Is it transitory with just storms? I don't know, but we're all hanging in there. So if you got ideas, please bring them up to Harbormaster.
Well, I think the good thing is we have a procedure in place in case that does happen. I mean, we've already, our lawyer has drawn up
Right.
a procedure that we can do in terms
For us slip holders.
of the slip holders and stuff. Yes, that's
We
a
have an
good
absolute procedure on how to keep the water out.
thing. Well, no.
I know. Okay. Aaron?
What's our? I know we've answered this before, and I just don't remember. What is? So if we lose, let's say one of them or two of them, or worst case scenario, all three, space-wise to shift some. I know we won't have much, but
Yeah, not very good.
Yeah.
We filled in most of the 40s last year from other marinas that are having problems. So we have a handful of 35s, but between 4, 5, and 6, there's roughly 150 slips there. So we could absorb probably 20
20, 30.
okay.
of the 35s, but nowhere to put the 30s. And 4 and 5 are all 30-foot, and the 600 dock is 35s, and they're each 50 slips roughly.
Okay.
So you could absorb maybe 2/3 of the 600 dock, and that would be it. Because everything else is pretty much full. You might have 1 or 2 here and there.
I mean, all the marinas on Lake Michigan and probably Lake Huron are in similar type situations. So.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have any kind of priority list, say if we lose the 400 dock, and we've got to move 50 of there's 23 slips. We don't know which 23 are going to be moved.
Yours will be last.
I start putting in for it now.
That's a good
There's
point.
no, I mean, I'm sure everybody's going to be complaining. Hey, why did he go and I didn't? And why did she go and my sailboat didn't go? And it's
Not a bad point to bring up.
seniority, something probably.
Well, it depends on how many 35s are even still available at that point.
Right.
You know.
Like Mrs. Pilecki says, 23 possibly.
Right now, yeah.
What do we have at
Out of the 50.
Trail Creek and
Well, yeah, there's a few spots there, but a 30-foot boat's kind of big for a
Big for it,
25-foot
yeah.
slip. You know,
a little bit hanging out.
Okay.
Should make a note of that.
It's
Okay.
is the wall, when the water's that high, there is no wall to tie up on at that point
yeah, you mean over there?
along the wall,
Oh, well, yeah, you could do that.
or is the water up too high even to tie up to that?
Well, no, you could tie up there, you know, but it comes over that wall then.
That's what I'm saying.
Too, yeah. But the posts are tall enough. You could,
Oh, okay.
depending on how long your boat is, you could, as long as you're not, you don't fit in between them,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
But
Well, there have been 2 storms in the last season of Halloween and then
yeah,
January 11th or something like that, where the water, even on not just the waves, but the water has been right at the edge of the municipal dock.
Yeah.
I mean, when the waves come and then it does flood, but I'm not sure that that's much of an option.
Yeah, I just wonder if the wall, does it get higher down towards Millennium Plaza, or is it the same?
It's pretty much similar.
No.
It doesn't obviously look like it's going uphill.
Okay.
You know. So
Mr. Bassino, Ms. Polecki has made note of what you talked about.
Okay.
We'll see what happens.
Just
We'll get involved
Just
in
know
that.
he wants to be number one.
Throw them all in a bucket and full of water.
Yeah, there's not
Lotto.
All right, any other comments to Mr. Polecki or to Mr. Frame about any of this water stuff we've been talking about? Okay. Moving on. Mr. Garrett, budget, financial oversight, bills.
Okay, just going to touch on 4 items on this list, and those 4 items will be about 98% of what is here. So, if you go about halfway down from GIS for $76,000, that is our insurance for the 2020 year. 5 down from there for $928.94 is our NIPSCO bill, and the final item on the first list is for a refund. And then in capital projects, we have $42,554.92. It's a payment to Larson Danielson. So those 4 items are roughly 87,000 of the 90,000. So unless there's any other questions for the other 16 items on this list, be more than happy to answer them, but otherwise I make a motion that we pay our bills as presented.
Questions? I just had make a comment. I'd asked Mr. Polecki earlier on the Larson Danielson, and we believe that's next to the last progressive payment on the 200 docks. So there'll be another one at least. But then that'll all be done. Obviously, that comes out of our capital account. Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor, excuse me. I'm sorry, we don't have a second yet.
I'll second.
Thank you, Tim. Apologize on that. We have a second. All those in favor of paying the bills, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, got the bills paid. Mr. Haynes, claims insurance?
I have no report.
Anything from Mr. Haynes? Any questions? Port operations. Myself, I don't. Let me just take a look at my notes here. We've covered everything that I can think of. Any questions for me on operations, personnel? Hearing none, moving on. Mr. Messina, voter communications, special events.
I just had written myself a note here to Mr. Frame, maybe just asking a question. On the throw rings along the pier. I think there were 7 of them original last time I saw an overhead shot. There were like 3 left. Do we know anything?
Yeah, the winter storms have been wreaking havoc on the throw rings. The fire department's aware of it and are working on replacements. But I think they don't know a good way of attaching them to keep them from being torn off by the waves. So it sounded to me when I talked to the fire department that they're trying to figure out a better way to attach those housings, because the housing is plastic. Mm-hmm. So even when you use fender washers on there, there's enough surface area, the waves just rip them right off there. But
I know in the past we've pretty much always found them when they're floating enclosed. Have we done that?
We have found a couple, but not all of them that are gone this time. Yeah, but in the past, I think a lot of times it was vandals that threw them in, and we were able to find them. But in a big storm, the waves carry them to who knows where.
Do we have our return address on the back of them.
Yeah, I don't know.
If found, please return.
They do have stickers on them.
How are the cameras holding up?
I haven't heard that they're not working, so I assume
That's
they're
good.
doing fine.
That's good.
I have nothing else, Mr. President.
Anything from Mr. Messina? Mr. Manor, Master Planning, Special Projects, Park Liaison.
Well, I have, just for your information and for the public's information, the park department lost an awful lot of trees down along the lakefront. I don't know what was it, 40-some trees, was it, Phil? They lost down there?
30 along Lakeshore.
Lakeshore, and then they lost some
30
up.
altogether.
30 altogether? Okay, well, they are going to replace all of those. They're going to replace them with smaller trees, and they're going to be flowering trees.
Yeah, they're not going to be as tall and branch out as far
Right.
as maintenance would be much easier.
Right, they're going to be smaller trees, so you don't have to worry about the trees getting up into the lines.
Rosebuds, I think.
Rosebud, yeah.
Red buds or rosebuds?
Red bud. So that's just for everybody's information if they're curious about it, because it does look a little bit different down there without those trees. So I think that's a good thing for the park and the marina also. That's all I have.
All right, Nick. Anything from Mr. Manor? Okay, Mrs. Mirror is not here today. She had a prior commitment. Mr. Messina, you're the backup for advertising and public relations. Do you have anything?
Nothing was passed on to me by Mrs. Mayor, no.
Okay. Mr. Zach Doon, attorney's report.
Yes, I find myself a little bit behind now on the internal controls meeting. I need to meet with staff, and as Mrs. Palicki pointed out, apparently the city has a new accounting system, so we're probably going to have to take a look at that and see if that impacts our internal controls at all, and if so, how. And then Mr. Manor, at the last meeting I attended, made the suggestion that in connection with the internal controls, we also take a look at the Board of Directors handbook and some of the other policies, and I'll be doing that as well to try to get the report done by February 28th and present it to the board.
Okay, as I remember, that policy update is like February 1st?
February 28th.
28th. And let's just presume we're going to carry over for several weeks on that. We're not going to worry about that as long as we keep bringing it up so that we get it accomplished in a due course.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I think we needed a little more time last year also, as I remember.
That's true.
Anything else?
And that's all I have.
Okay, everybody pay their bills that we've been in court with, or hear any more from those people?
Well, there was one person who I think called and was going to make arrangements to pay. And I think I talked to Kristen about that. Do you happen to know if...
No, I don't.
Okay. I'll follow up and see if there was one person who received a letter and indicated that they had forgotten completely about it and were going to make payments and try to get it done within, if I recall correctly, 4 or 5 months. They were going to make 4 or 5 payments. But I'll follow up and see if that has come to fruition.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Zachman? Any new business to come before the board?
Mr. President,
Sam?
I have an issue that I want to share with the board. There was a terrible marina fire in late January in Alabama.
Yes, there was.
And the report I have is that within a 20-minute period of time, they had 8 fatalities and 35 boats were sunk, and there was horrific damage done to the marina at large. And when I got that information, I began to realize and remember that we do have a first responder program here for the basin, but it's probably 15 years old, and it was made with the help and the improvement of the current the current at that time chief of police and fire marshal. I think it would be a good idea, and I'm simply asking the staff to consider having another meeting with the current chief and fire marshal and see if, in their opinion, the first responder program that we have in place is adequate for the way they want it to be. There's been some changes in the marina since we did that program. And also, to my knowledge, we don't have any kind of first responder program set aside for Trail Creek and Sprague. And I think maybe that whole package ought to be re-examined.
Okay.
So I'm not going to make a motion, I simply request that staff get together with the fire department.
I think that's a good idea. I'd like to make a note on here to bring this up as old business.
Okay.
And so we be sure to key on it. And give me a second. We'll kick this around. That's what I do. I'd like to work with you on that. All three areas. Good point. Thank you very much, Mr. Johns. I'll be honest, I've been here 8 years. I have never thought about fire or fire hoses. I know we have that stuff, and I never thought about that procedure. I think that's a good idea. Appreciate you bringing that up. Any other new business to come before the board? Any old business to come before the board? You know, I missed guest recognition earlier because I didn't see it on the top, but we've got Mr. Campbell, you're here today. Would you like to talk to us? Did I get that right?
Cooper.
Pardon me?
Mike Cooper.
I'm sorry. Mike? I appreciate it. I apologize. Mr. Cooper.
I have nothing this evening. Thank you.
You had a name change.
Evidently.
I apologize. Mr. Freeze is here tonight from the park board.
Nothing.
Glad to see both of you. All right. Unless there's anything else, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Motion to adjourn and a second from there. Next meeting is February 24th. We are adjourned, everyone.
5:27.